All right, guys, today we're going to be doing a wiring repair, and I thought I'd bring you along for two reasons. One, not just to see the repair itself, but also for the technique and tools I use to figure out how to find these kind of parts. Now, we're working on a 6.5-liter diesel engine. We got the turbo cover off here, and we've got a connector here on the back where the latch is broken off due to age, and it won't stay connected. This happens to be the fuel heater for the fuel filter manager here. The Standardine fuel filter manager has a fuel heater that kicks on whenever the temperature of the fuel is below 40 degrees Fahrenheit to warm it up. So we need to fix this because it keeps popping out. And it's a pretty simple fix. There's two ways you can go about this, and later in the video I'll show you how to pick this. GM's really good about selling the connectors, and either just the connector or a pigtail. And what we're going to do today is the connector replacement approach. Now this guy plugs in on the back here, and I'll show you in the service manual. I don't know if you guys can see. There's a whole bank of these connectors back here. The water and fuel sensors here. There's some other things. So there's just a whole row of them on this particular engine back here. And this same connector is used in a number of different places on a number of different old body style trucks. So to get this guy off, we're going to need a couple of tools here. And then, like I said, later in the video I'll show you how you pick it. So this is a 3-prong Weather-pak connector. There's like a clip here and a clip here, and that allows us to lift up the back of this guy, right, like that, to expose the terminals. And then what we're going to be replacing it with, and again I'll show you how you figure out this part number after we get done with this repair, but we're going to be replacing it with a GM 1201 5793. This is an older part. It's got the Delco kind of packaging on it. But what it is just a new one of these connectors with the correct latch. And so we're going to depopulate this and populate it in here. And there's another tool we're going to be using for that. And I got a whole bunch of these tools for different types of connectors. But on these type here that are round, where has a round type terminal inside of a round type housing, it's going to be an Aptiv 1201 4012-1. There's a whole bunch of these tools from Aptiv, and you got to remember, historically these were made by Packard Electric division of GM, which spun off to Delphi, which eventually spun off to Aptiv. So the way we depopulate these terminals is we grasp them in the back and we push them all the way forward. Then we slide the tool over the top. And if we pushed it in forward enough, we can remove it. Of course, I'm laying here on my chest, so it's a little bit awkward. Come on. I feel it releasing. It's just not coming out. There it goes. All right. So that one's out. And then what I'll do is we'll just populate it as we do each one. So we'll slide this guy in the first place. Push this one in. That one nice and easy. The way it's supposed to. And this last one, I'll show you how this kind of terminal works. Push this in. And what we're doing is we're sliding it over the terminal, pushing it till it clicks, and it comes out. And the way this is working is, if you zoom in here, there's a couple of prongs. And this tool closes those prongs. And that's what allows it to be depopulated from the housing. All right, so we get this guy inserted into the air. That's the last one. Naturally, there's the least amount of slack. When you're sure all three of them are on okay, and close the little clip on the back on both sides, and then we can reconnect it in the back, and we can put our housing back on. So now let me go show you how I figured out what connector to use. All right, guys, and just to show you where this guy is plugged in back here, you can see there's our new connector right there, all snapped in, and now it's latching properly. All right, guys, so how do you figure out what connector part number you need to order. So you got to have access to the service manual. This is a hard copy one, but you can get service information online too. And I'm going to go up to the wiring system section of the service manual in this particular model year. And you're going to find all of these different connectors on the vehicle, called out here. Now, this is just one section. There's another section with more of these connectors, but this is where you start. Now, how do you narrow into these numbers you see, right? So you can see there's numbers for these connectors. C is a connector number, like 118, 117, 115, 113, right? So how do you figure out which connector you need? Well, you got to go further in this section till you see some of the illustrations for where these things are located, right? And where we were working was right here. Diesel engine, rear engine harness. You can see there's these several connectors here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if we reference this number 4, we can see that's the guy we were trying to do, the fuel heater connector. And actually you can see this drawing is very good, right? Because this is the actual connector that we elected to replace by depinning it and putting on a new housing. So now if I wanted to know, well, what is the part number of that connector? You know the area you're in here because they give you some of these C numbers. Like, so they tell you C, this one right next to it, they tell you is C113, and then they tell you the one next to that is C112, and this little guy at the end is C114. But they don't always number all of them, but at least it gets you in the right neighborhood. And so now we know, well, this is a section that's in the engine control section. So we can see here's 113, but we don't see 114. Right? So not all of these are here. So we're going to have to reference a different section in the actual engine controls. So we're going to have to switch to another book, and we're going to go to the engine controls section, and there's some additional connectors listed here that are specific to controlling the engine, and that's where we find our guy, the fuel heater. This 3-pin Weather-pak connector. This is facing it head on. There's the tab on ours that was broken. And they tell you right here that the part number on that is a 1201 5793 3-way M Weather-pak, because that's what you saw me install, right? So this same connector is used in many places, right? If we just go right over here, we can see it's also used for the water and fuel sensor. Same part number. And if you went through this manual, you'd find several uses of this connector, and you'd find several uses of many of these connectors. So that's how you find the part number if you have the manual. Now, what if you're trying to zero in on what's available? Well, for that, let me show you the AC Delco website. All right, guys, let me show you how you can find this information online if you don't have the service manual. Let's use a Chromium browser, and let's go to acdelco.com. This is actually going to redirect to gmparts.com nowadays. It used to go to its own thing, but they changed it here recently. And on this page, we're going to go into technical resources, and we're going to scroll down. There's a number of different catalogs here that are pretty handy. The one we're going to use today is the pigtail and socket catalog. And from this view, we'll be able to search for a pigtail or a socket based on physical attributes about that, or if it happens to have the part number molded into it. In this case, what we're looking for, if we didn't know anything from the service manual, we know we're looking for something with 3 cavities, and we know it's got male connectors. When they say male, they're not talking about those housings being insertable. They're talking about the actual terminal. And if we hit display parts here, they're going to give us descriptions and pictures. All right, so here's one that's the same type of connector, and it's got 4 cavities. But there's our guy right there. So the nylon is a black color, the insulator is green, and it's got 3 cavities with male terminals on the inside. That's our guy, part number for this particular pigtail, PT195. If we hit View Smart Page, we'll see some additional pictures that we can look at to help us identify it. And you can blow these up to see that that is exactly what you're looking for. This third one will show what's actually in this kit, which is a pre-populated socket with some pigtail leads and some crimp connectors that have that GM type of, when you heat them up, they self-seal and are weatherproof. And over here on the bottom side, we can get some information about the specifications of this particular connector. But the most important thing, and the reason you got to use a Chromium type browser, what I found is like on Firefox and some of the other browsers, this last selection won't show the interchange. And on the interchange, here we can see there's our number, 12015793. So it's telling us this has that same type of connector on the end. There's an older number for that as well over here. And then they have a number that they're associating with this current pigtail. So that's what you can use to cross-reference these. What's orderable or not is going to depend on, whether GM's discontinued the item or not. But if you want to order this particular socket, it's the 12015793. I believe the socket itself is discontinued now. If you want to order the pigtail, you can either use the AC Delco number, which is PT195. And you can see it's used for a lot of different things. It's also used for a throttle position sensor if you happen to have a manual transmission. So there's at least 3 things we've seen in this video for this one connector: a water and fuel sensor on diesel, a fuel heater on diesel, and a throttle position or TPS connector on a manual transmission. You can also find aftermarket information here for this particular connector, and they're telling you that this is sold by all these other companies using these various part numbers as well. So that's a lot of useful information here. I hope this video helps you out, not just with how to actually do a repair on one of these Weather-pak type connectors, but how to find out which one that you might need. And again, if you come back over here, let's say that we wanted to go search for, we wanted to go search for, trying to figure out how we can go back to where we were. Oh, here we are. Okay, I'm going to close this tab. I'm just going to go back into this catalog again and say I want to search for a socket. Now, the sockets is not a good thing to search for because they don't give you any way to delineate. What you're going to end up just getting is all the sockets in the catalog that are currently available. But worst case, you could crawl through all of these different sockets visually and try to identify the item. But my recommendation is that you go with the pigtail flavor of this, because that at least allows you to make selections, right? So let's say we wanted to find that one we passed earlier that had 4 connectors. And you got to watch out here. Sometimes the default picture is not useful. You have to go in and look at it. And so we can go in here and try to crawl through here and find something that's of the right type. And again, if you have the service manual, it's a lot faster. And then there we would be. That's the 4 cavity version of the same type of Weather-pak connector that we used in this video. And there's a number for that pigtail as well. So I hope that helps you out. If you got questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below and I'll try to help. If you found this video useful and it taught you something or saved you some money or helped you get that repair done, please pay it forward and hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching.